Well, we've come up with some, marketing and commercial ideas on this show from time to time because the NFL season provides plenty of opportunities. I think we found another one this past week, although it's, happened over the course of the past several years. But Microsoft Surface, they really need to just absolutely go after the look how durable our
Built.
Microsoft Surfaces are because my goodness, they have withstood Tom Brady's wrath, Aaron Rodgers' wrath, plenty of other quarterbacks tossing that bad boy right into the ground over the years. And, they hang tough. They're still there to show you the all 22 of what you missed.
You either got to get Chevy to say Microsoft tablets like a rock, or you get Ford to be like Microsoft
Built
tablets
Ford
built
tough.
Ford tough. I
Yeah.
mean, either one works. I think that I what I love so much about that is just like it feels is like Tom Brady just needs football now because he needs to be able to like get to a place where he can yell and it be okay. Because I'm sure he's not yelling at his wife because his wife is
Yeah.
obviously they're having some going through the grinds of a marriage, and I you get that sense that he can't, he's maybe got some frustration built up, and so he just gets to the football field and screams at all his teammates, and they can't do anything about it because he's the GOAT. And then he just takes tablets and he whips them around. And it's like, I feel like Tom, hangs up the phone with Giselle and starts doing the same thing at home. And you're just seeing a little bit of this get leaking onto the field. Just a tidbit, just a tidbit. But hey, Bucks are 2-0, man. After everything the Bucks have been through, this weird start to the year, a lot of craziness for a lot of different teams. The Bucks 2-0, sitting pretty right now.
It's very interesting, that's for sure. I wonder if he's obviously a very very rich man. He could probably afford a surface guy, just a dude to go
Yeah.
fetch the surfaces at his home when he
Oh,
throws them around. Hey, I threw one out the second story today. Can you go fetch that in the backyard? It's over by the third pool on the left.
yeah.
That type of deal. I'm sure
Tom,
that he's got that in the works.
he's wealthy enough to destroy any sort of expensive piece of technology he wants to.
That's
And
very
that's
true.
got to be
Yeah.
freeing. That's a freeing feeling, Dan.
Well,
That's a
they've
freeing
got those
feeling.
places you can pay and go destroy cars and stuff. Tom Brady doesn't
Yeah.
have to worry about that. He just can do that in his own driveway. It's all
No,
good.
it
Buy
just
another one tomorrow.
is Tom Brady's favorite day of the year is when they announce the new iPhone coming out because he'll just take his and chuck it as hard as it can
Yeah.
against the brick wall and be like, "Give me the new one now." Like, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And don't let
He's
Goodell get that phone.
the perfect test subject right there for the
Yeah.
durability of all electronics, Mr. Tom Brady there. But it was a wild week 2 of the NFL season. It's been a
Crazy.
very interesting start to the year, obviously. Like, week 1 we had a couple, weird things happen, but nothing like super shocking. This week was
Yeah.
a little bit more off the beaten path, if you will, on some really interesting outcomes. So yes, here we are in the football lounge with Mark and Dan. If you're just joining us for the first time, where you been? We've missed you, but we are on YouTube. We're on anywhere you listen to a podcast, so check us out all season long. What we're going to do until we maybe get about to the final 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to go over every game of the week. And once it gets to the final month, we're going to zero in on the matchups that matter and the playoff picture as that starts to pull together. You're going to have your Super Bowl plane. Certainly way too
Yeah.
early for that, but we've got that coming up later on this season. And be sure to check us out, and we'll give you kind of the lowdown, the recap of all the games outside of the Monday Night Football game, of course, in which we are recording this on a Monday after all of the Thursday night and Sunday games. So let's dive in, Mark. We've got the Thursday game,
Yeah.
Chargers Chiefs, which was the
Ribgate.
premier game, absolutely, that we've been looking forward to start the season. Obviously, a premier matchup between AFC West rivals and two of what many consider Super Bowl contenders, Justin Herbert taking on Patrick Mahomes. And it wasn't as high scoring of affair. I was thinking maybe going into this, we'd get the Chiefs Rams from 3 years ago, where
Yeah, that'd be
Jared Goff
sweet.
and Mahomes put up 50 burgers each. But, Chiefs edged the Chargers here by a field goal in a 27-24 battle. But it was engaging nonetheless. Obviously, we saw a ton of fight from Justin Herbert late in this one. Found out that he got some fractured ribs, which is obviously not going to be an issue that goes away anytime soon. He's going to be dealing with that all year long, but he fought through it, threw a dime late in the fourth quarter as the Chargers kind of fight back in this one, but it's the Chiefs that come out on top. It's hard to look back at games that were 4 days ago now in the rearview mirror after all of the craziness of yesterday, Mark. But as you look back on that game, what kind of stood out to you? Any takeaways from this matchup?
Well, Justin Herbert, he's definitely got that ability to wow you. And I think what scares me about Herbert, obviously the injury is concerning. I think he'll be able to, hopefully they got new doctors in to administer rib shots, and so he's good. Because as we just saw, Tyrod Taylor officially now suing the Chargers.
What doctor, right?
Their history is not great, but I will say, we do need to start. I don't know if we need to start being critical yet, but we do need to be aware that Justin Herbert isn't perfect. And Justin Herbert, I thought for points of this game, outplayed Mahomes. I think there was points in this game where the Chargers outplayed the Chiefs for long stretches. But I think that Justin Herbert has got to start. Someone's got to get in his ear and be like, dude, not every ball has to be a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. I mean, he does that maybe better than anyone in the league right now when he just wants to put it on an absolute rope that is the most accurate fastball in the league. But there are times when I just think he misses throws and without the touch. And with the broken ribs, I don't know if that's going to get worse or better. I also think that defensively, this Chargers team is just too good to have some of the lapses they make. But I also think part of it is the coaching staff puts the Chargers defense in some weird positions. This defense is good enough to sometimes not have to take the risk that they take. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It feels like this Chargers defense is just good enough to let them play man on man.
Well, and I also
times.
think they should run the
one
football
of the few defenses that can do that. And then for the Chiefs, I do think also this was the first moment of the season where we thought, oh, they're missing a little bit of that big play dynamic that's like explosive big plays. We saw it in Miami, which we'll talk about coming on up. I think we know who we're talking about. But overall, again, it just felt like there's an organization that's a little bit more buttoned up, even though the other organization might be more talented. And like it always seems to happen in the NFL, the more buttoned up organization seems to be able to handle the adversity when it comes for their team. And in division, in these rivalries where it's loud, it's crazy, like we saw Sunday night, which we'll talk about later in Arrowhead on a Thursday Night Football, the Chiefs, when you play the Chiefs in Arrowhead, it doesn't matter if you're more talented. Sometimes you just have to be more buttoned up, and the Chargers are rarely more buttoned up.
Yeah, that is a problem for sure. And they come in spurts a little bit too much. Like you'd like to see a little bit more consistency. I think what I have seen from the Chiefs so far this year is a little bit more consistency drive to drive. Whereas before we would get the big, 1 play, 2 play drives. And then maybe they'd stall a little bit, but it was okay because the offense could, knock you out with one punch at any given time. We've seen them, sustain and stack scoring drives together, and they've been a little bit more balanced. I think I'm not going to say that losing Tyreek Hill made this team better. I mean, losing a great all-pro doesn't make you a better team, but what it does do is probably force them to maybe lean into the run game a little more, and they've been pretty effective. They came out in this Chargers game, the whole first quarter, they were like trying to pound the rock, and they took a lot of time off the clock and maybe prevented the Chargers from getting in more of an offensive rhythm early on because they were able to kind of sustain drive. Now, the Chiefs weren't able to score in the first quarter, which was a problem. They didn't get a touchdown till midway through the second, but they were able to take a lot of time off the clock and show that they could sustain drives. I think that's going to be a formula that works for Patrick Mahomes and company moving forward, as long as Edwards-Helaire can be the guy that they hoped he was when they drafted him.
It's funny you say that, because in a lot of ways, it's maybe a change of philosophy for the Chiefs. It's for the better. A lot of times people say, hey, the best way to stop Aaron Rodgers is, like the Bears, you got to just sustain drives. You got to keep him off the field. Yeah. For the Chiefs, Their weakness is their defense. It's not an elite defense, especially going up against all the weapons like of a Chargers offense. Sometimes maybe the best thing for your defense is to keep them off the field, this long sustained drives. Something that the Chiefs' offensive philosophy may be a little more suited this year to help out their defense in the sense that, hey, our defense can make plays, but we got to keep them off the field as much as possible. Let's keep our offense on the field, longer sustained drives, control the clock, and that'll play in our defense's hand where it's like, hey, we can pin our ears back a little bit and not have to worry about stopping long sustained drives because they're not a defense that's built for that.
No, they're definitely not. And, if the back's against the wall, they can still, put together a short, quick scoring drive. So I think they, with that capability, I think that's a good formula going forward. Chargers are going to be perfectly fine. I think even with the injury, Justin Herbert's good enough to overcome a lot of that. But, the rushing side of things for him is probably going to be tampered down, even though it really has been already to start this
Especially
year. So.
because the AFC already through 2 weeks, AFC West doesn't look like the juggernaut we thought it would be.
Yeah.
The Raiders
there have
fell
been
apart.
a lot of, tight, tough contests for all of them early on. The schedules are brutal. So maybe that'll kind of thin out a little bit as we go on. But I mean,
being
the schedules don't get a whole lot easier for these guys.
Yeah. Being 1-1 in Chargerland right now, no need to panic.
Yeah, they're perfectly fine. The Jets at the Browns.
Wild.
Let's go to the Sunday action. What a crazy game. All right, so the Browns go up by 2 scores late in the fourth quarter. Now, there's been some controversy over whether, Kevin Stefanski should have told Nick Chubb, hey, kneel down at the 1 yard line instead of going in to get that score. But look, they were up 2 possessions at that point. You trust your team to be able to, stave off a Joe Flacco-led Jets team. But nonetheless, New York comes back and scores twice late in this game, and they're able to pull off a 1-point victory on the road against the Browns. Browns now finding themselves 1-1 and giving the New York Jets their first win of the season. A crazy game and really a wild finish to this one as, let's see, a 66-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco to Corey Davis, and then a 15-yard touchdown to the rookie Garrett Wilson, his 3rd touchdown of the game, or 2nd touchdown of the game, I should say. And that provides the game-winning score there for the Jets in the final minute of the game. Wild finish in this one.
It is, to me, this is the first game we're going to start of a couple games where it's like there's absolutely no excuses. Chubb scores that touchdown. The game should be, it shouldn't matter. The whole we wanted him to actually stop, waste more time. No, that's ridiculous. That is such a bad excuse. You are up 2 scores with a minute and 15, something like that left. I mean, it is absolutely pathetic of a Browns defense that's supposed to help them carry this team while they don't have their star quarterback. Inexcusable performance defensively. One of many inexcusable defensive performances in week 2. I think there's nothing else to say. Kudos to the Jets for not giving up. Robert Saleh had a bad press conference a week ago where he's like, oh, we're taking receipts. That's stupid coach speak. I think that was really embarrassing by him. I thought it was really, really a bad day at the mic. But you know what? For the Jets to show some sort of spine to stay in this game and to not give up and take advantage of it, absolutely pathetic performance by the Browns defensively in the last minute of that game. But they're not the only ones that were pathetic in the last couple possessions defensively in week 2.
No, that's very true. That was a game the Browns really needed to win. You got to take the ones that you're supposed to win without Deshaun. Got to get these ones.
You, as a Browns fan, circled the Jets as a win, and you lost it, and it was a pathetic defensive performance in the final 2 minutes of the game.
We'll go to another fairly pathetic defensive performance, but before that, I'm curious your thoughts on Brownie the Elf.
You know what? I think the Browns need to do as much as they can to distract us from their fact that they have fans setting up really grotesque things in the tailgates.
That was ridiculous.
And they have, and they've made just horrible decisions as an organization. So I think this is just the first of many. Watch out for other things to go on through the year over the next couple of weeks that the Browns are going to try to do. Wouldn't shock me if the Browns tried to do some sort of big jersey retirement or something else this year. where they're trying to get good pub, things like that, because they need it.
Yeah,
I'm not letting
I'm
it
on board with
distract
you.
me. That's my thoughts on it. I'm not letting it
Yeah,
distract me.
I just thought it was weird. I've always thought they should just embrace the bulldog. I don't understand
I
why they
agree.
won't. They still use it. The
Dog
fans
pound.
still call it the dog pound. They bring out the bulldog. Just have a bulldog on the field, and that's your mascot. Like it's very
Yeah.
simple. The Commanders go on the road. The Detroit Lions will not go
Pathetic.
away, and they looked like studs in this game. Detroit with a 36-27 win. It was way more of a blowout than that score indicates. Detroit dominated this game. They were up, what was it, 27-0 at one point.
Yeah.
It was just an absolute dominating performance all around by the Lions. And that's why I say terrible defensive performance. Washington, who's really been able to lean on their defensive line over the past few years, Detroit ran all over them in this
Yeah.
game. And for them to go up 22-0 going into the half, just inexcusable by Washington in this one. And really, I mean, you can't let the offense off the hook either. They did not play well. They didn't get their playmakers, off and running early on. But yeah, huge gutty performance by Detroit.
This is the type of stuff that gives you, if you're a Lions fan, it's got to feel so good, because you can tell they started building a culture last year. The culture's continued over, and at home, your favorites for the first time in like 2 years, and you come out and you just shit rock a Commanders team that looked so underprepared, so uninspired. And I love Ron Rivera, 85 Bear for life, great defensive coordinator for the Bears in 06, get him the Super Bowl. But it looks like that team is just, I mean, it was so uninspiring. That's the type of loss where it's like, if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm like, who cares? Now it's like, that is such a, like, I want to rebuild, new coach, like, that was such an uninspiring loss. Pathetic defensive performance. You have a defensive coach. Wentz does what he does. He puts up big plays and big numbers in garbage time. Goff was great in this game. And if you're Jared Goff, you're doing exactly what you need to do to try to hold on to that starting job for another year. I mean, Jared Goff, his job right now is to try to get the Lions to not draft a quarterback. And that was the type of performance, the type of win where you're like, all right, FNA. If they're doing it in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, why can't we do it in Detroit with Jared Goff? Roll him out. He's not expensive. He's way less expensive as far as in the long term than a lot of these other guys. And so I don't know. I think there was such great win. I wanted to bring this up. This was what I mentioned to you before we started recording. This is what I love about the Detroit Lions, and it feels authentic. It does not feel fake to me at all. After the game, the coaches get to send players to the podium, right? Dan Campbell sent reserve offensive lineman Dan Skipper to the podium before any other player after their win. Why? It was his first NFL start after being in the league for 6 years, being cut multiple times, practice squad guy, finally makes his first NFL start at guard. He played really well. There's a video going around viral of him in the morning, in the game, in the locker room after the win. And shout out to Skipper. Shout out to Dan Campbell for doing that. That's the type of stuff in a city like Detroit, in a team like Detroit, that if you can create an ethos and a passion, hey, you know what? They may never win a Super Bowl in Detroit. But if I can be a fan of that team if I'm a Detroit person and a fan of the Lions. I can love to death a team like that rallies around their coach, rallies around players, rallies around storylines, and only wins 7, 8, 9 games a year. Like that's way better fandom than the highs and the lows and the craziness and the chaos. And like we just said, look at what Washington's dealing with right now. It's all up in the air, and there's nothing inspiring about that loss. There's a lot to be inspired about that win. You were favorites at home. You took care of business, and you kicked in the teeth of a team that many thought, oh, they're just as good, if not better than you. And love it for the Lions.
They are a prime example of how a head coach can create a culture and how important culture is to a rebuild particularly, but just any team in general. I mean, if you think about it, What difference have we seen with Detroit? We've talked about it. We've seen the fight in this team over the last 2 years that we didn't
Yep.
see before. It was almost instantaneous. You knew it. They run the ball well. They know what they're doing. They have an identity. It's very clear that Detroit has confidence when they're rolling out in the
Swift
field.
is a star too.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's great. He's fantastic. What we're not I don't know what we've seen from the Jets, for instance, to like in terms of like a cultural shift. I'm not seeing that yet. Um, I'm really not seeing it despite, how great Herbert is. I haven't seen like a cultural shift with the Chargers, Brandon Staley. I can see the impact Dan Campbell has had on Detroit in just these past 2 years. I think that's important. And it's a pretty clear indicator of where this team's headed, just given how buttoned up they are in
Yeah.
so many phases of the game. It's very impressive so far. All right, moving on to some of the other matchups in this one. We got the Steelers at home in their home opener at Acrisure Stadium, first game at Acrisure against the New England Patriots. A total dud, a boring game. If you weren't a Steelers or Patriots fan, this was probably a rough watch for you overall. I mean, it was, even if you are a fan of those teams, but Patriots edged them 17-14, just really no offense in this game at all from either team. And the Patriots, the difference maker ends up being a dropped interception late in the fourth quarter by the
Yep.
Steelers, which moments later turned into a muffed punt by the Steelers, and then a Patriots score that pretty much put it out of touch at that point. At least it felt that way. So that's where they stand right now. The Steelers offense just looks like kind of what we expected out of Mitch Trubisky and company. He's going to not go through the progressions in a timely manner, have bad mechanics at times, flash the athleticism, flash the willingness to try and make a big play, but altogether inconsistency really coming home to roost there for Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, the Patriots, they didn't look very good either. Is really
No.
they were going to be good in the trenches defensively, and they're going to try to run the football well, and they were able to do that late in the game, but not really an identity for either of these teams right now.
One big throw by Mac Jones when they needed it for that touchdown pass. And that was good to see if you're a Pats fan, like, hey, the talent I feel like is still there for Mac. I just don't think he's being coached and game planned well right now. I think that's the issue. Like we've said about the beginning of the year, these teams are so similar. I mean, they want to just play defense. They want to control the clock. They want to, let their quarterbacks try to manage the games. I thought Mitch, at times, it just seemed like they weren't letting him do anything to try to, to make a play. And then when you have to then Mitch like, hey, now you have to make a play. That's just not his game at all. It's just not. And overall, I think these teams are still okay though. I'm not writing off either team. I feel like both teams are still very capable of beating good opponents, but also very capable of losing to worse opponents because neither team feels like if they need to get 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes to win a game, they could do it. Like neither.
Right.
And like, I just saw the Jets do it. So I just don't know with either team offensively right now. And for Mitch, it's tough. I mean, that offensive line is shaky, and the Steelers know their best chance to win games right now is to lean on their defense and not turn the ball over. So it's really hard to game plan for that when you have a quarterback who what he does best is move the pocket, improvise, use my athleticism. That's all the stuff that can lead to turnovers, and that's not what Mike Tomlin wants at all right now. And for the Patriots, it seems like their biggest problem is they actually do have some playmakers on offense, but they just have zero scheming ability right now. It feels like to scheme guys into open plays because Mac Jones is not the type of guy, even though he's physically built for sit in the pocket, drop back, and pick you apart. It doesn't seem like they have the offensive playbook to do that right now. So it's a weird spot for both teams. But I don't want to overreact or panic. I do think both teams are still on pace for what I predicted. Steelers in the playoff hunt. Patriots, when the meat of their schedule comes around, they won't be able to score enough points to keep up with people.
Yeah, offensive woes continue for both of these teams. And, they're both relatively young offenses, Pittsburgh particularly. Yeah. So, maybe in time things will get better. It appears that they can't really get much worse. But Only 2 touchdowns this entire season so far for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not where you expected this to be, especially with the weapons that they have for sure. But if you
Yeah,
told me they'd be 1-1 to start the year, that is what I would have predicted, just not in the order that it panned out. The
exactly right.
Buccaneers, what's that?
I said, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. So the Buccaneers go on the road at the Saints. The Saints always giving Tom Brady fits there with his time in Tampa, and this is the aforementioned Microsoft Surface game. But the Bucks defense comes through in the clutch. A pick six late kind of helps seal things for them as they edge New Orleans by 10, 20-10. This is I do worry about the Saints. They didn't have Alvin Kamara for this game. Obviously, that can be an issue there, but no Chris Godwin for the Bucks, and they were able to somehow eke out a win against a pretty talented Saints defense overall. But I just like this Saints offense, despite the guys they have. They have the Michael Thomas, the rookie Chris Olave, Landry, Kamara. They have a lot of guys, but it doesn't. Right, I don't feel comfortable. I mean, Jameis Winston threw 40 times in this game,
It's a lot.
and it's just these are not the ways that they're going to win. They score one touchdown in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter.
I mean, the game was 3-3, like going into the fourth. I
like
mean,
the whole game.
this was a close game. It was a bare knuckle fight, and neither team wanted to make the big mistake. I will say, I think that if you're a Bucks fan, though, you got to feel great about this. Yeah, you're going to lose Evans for a game. That sucks, but you also went to New Orleans. This is the game that most people circle. All right, the Bucks are going to win probably 11, 12 games, so they're probably going to drop one to New Orleans in New Orleans. Like, this is when they circled as like, probably going to be a loss, as you're trying to find like 4 or 5 losses for a Bucks team that you think is going to make the playoffs. For them to be 2-0, having looked really bad against Dallas and having looked offensively way out of rhythm and losing Mike Evans to a massive fight and a shove, and they're 2-0, you got to feel good about that. Your team found ways to win, and you may argue that Jameis gave away the win, but also that's, that either way,
that's what your
team
right?
ended up with the W. They found the way to win, to get the pick six. So I feel good if I'm a Bucks fan after 2 weeks. Good in the sense that both these teams, you could be like the Bengals, where you played that poorly and they're 0-2, you're 2-0. So that has to give you some encouragement, because Tom Brady won't be this out of sync with his whole offense the whole season. They will get it going, even though he's missing Wednesdays. And for New Orleans, it stings because you played what you needed to play, the way you needed to play to win that game. You frustrated Brady, you frustrated Evans, you kept it close, and you just could not, for the life of you, get it in the end zone and make the big play with your big play weapons. So that hurts. And, that's why I said I predicted New Orleans to miss the playoffs. I just think way too many variables for this New Orleans team all year long, and it starts with the quarterback.
Yeah, we're both in agreement there. I don't think New Orleans is going to be able to get there. I totally agree that, look, I mean, it's the old adage, you'd rather be, learning from your mistakes after a win than a loss. And I mean, the Bucks are perfectly happy right now to be 2-0 in this spot and know that their worst football is hopefully behind them after these first couple of games. And, they're able to win by double digits as well. Meanwhile, Mike Evans, the only player that will be suspended in that scuffle, as Marshawn Lattimore and others are likely going to just receive a fine. This is largely because Mike Evans is a multiple offender in this type
and
of
he
category.
did the worst thing.
That's what happened. Yeah,
If
I mean, he ran onto the field and shoved the guy.
If he would have ran on the field and got right in Lattimore's face, they probably both would have been fined. But as soon as you legitimately, shove someone in the ground after charging at them from being away from the act in itself, there's no fighting that on Evans. If I were him, I'd take the suspension, move on. Don't even bother appealing it.
Yeah, it's just going to happen. All right. Well, the Panthers at the Giants, and Brian Daboll's Giants are 2-0 to start the year, and
shocker.
I don't care Panthers or not. Like the Giants have impressed so far. I mean, a 19-16 gutty performance, not really looking great, but Daniel Jones gets it done in crunch time to be able to run the clock out with a big time third down run. And he was 22 of 34, 176 and a touchdown. And leads the Giants to a win.
Not
That's
great.
kind of going to be the formula, right?
Yeah.
Like for the Giants,
It's not
unfortunately.
great.
But I mean, hey, you got to say, man, Dable's 2-0. Like it's impressive. Meanwhile, the Panthers, and I'm sure we'll get to that. Uh, this is a disaster right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say this: Dable has got the feeling in the locker room, and you feel it. Like you see all the post game stuff. And it's not shocking because people like Josh Allen have talked so highly about Dable. He's just kind of got that dude factor. He's a dude, and he can relate to it. And I really think that has done something for the Giants. It's obvious also through 2 games, if you're a New York fan, that you don't want to move forward with Daniel Jones. The problem is, it also seems like this team might win too many games, like right now. Like they have picks, they have, but there's 2 prized possessions right now in college football at the quarterback position, so it looks like. And all of a sudden, Carolina's 0-2, you're 2-0, and you're both keeping an eye out for those type of prized possessions. It feels good to win. I never want to say that. You want to build your culture. Winning is important. We said it all the time with the Lions, but it's so obvious that Daniel Jones his life as a quarterback is not as a 17-game starter leading to the playoffs. I mean, that is painful watching him dink and dunk. But they also, I think, are smartly, what Daboll is trying to do is like, hey, we need to win games first and foremost. This culture has been bad in this locker room since that last playoff loss. So we have just got to change the tides a little bit. So I can understand the value in that. And if there's a guy you really want to go get, you might have to trade extra to get him because you win too many games. But New York might also be the player in like, hey, we're New York. You want to be the free agent that comes help us rebuild this. Maybe they're not looking to the draft. Maybe their eyes are on a free agent or a trade prize. Their quarterback's already starting in the NFL. Who knows? But it feels good to see the Giants not absolutely lifeless. And for the Panthers, they are bailing water. Matt Rule, you should take the call from Nebraska now because you put a fork. Baker, you didn't have many. It's not like you had a better option of where to be. This, it just hasn't looked good. It's looked disjointed. McCaffrey had a nice day, but it's looking bleak for your Panthers.
Yeah, no, it's weird to come full circle after, pounding the table for Matt Rule to win Coach of the Year, last year,
Yeah.
and have the team, make the playoffs and all of that. It's just, at this point, it's pretty clear there's no seat hotter in the league right now. And this is a Mayday, red alert. Like, you guys, they have to win this week. Like, you can't get into just like a losing streak to start the year and then find yourself at 0-5 and expect to keep a job. It's not going to happen. The bizarre thing is I'm still adamant that it's a good roster. They have good players on this team. They just can't put it together. I mean, and you even wanted to give the benefit of the doubt of Baker Mayfield with Ben McAdoo, two completely new people to the system and to the place. But I mean, that's still, these have to translate into wins at some point. And they needed to beat the Giants in this one. Too many points left on the table for this team. Panthers are in very big trouble. Meanwhile, I agree. Like, New York is impressing so far, and that's really all you can ask from a team with a struggling quarterback and a brand new head coach. I think they look pretty good. The Colts, meanwhile, look awful, and that is kind of surprising.
Shocking.
To me.
Shocked.
I mean, I expected them to be pretty good and improved with Matt Ryan under center versus Phillip Rivers. They have been all over the map, completely disjointed offensively. The Jaguars put up shut them out 24-0 in this one. Now, the Jags have had their number in recent years, so it didn't come as a total shock. What did was the 0 on the scoreboard for the Colts. Jags dominated throughout this game, and Matt Ryan just seemingly completely confused. And now, look, they didn't have Michael Pittman. They didn't have Alec Pierce, but you have Jonathan Taylor. You got Paris Campbell. You got some other weapons. A 0 against the Jaguars, certainly not vaunted defense, is, raising tons of concerns here. 50% completion percentage for Matt Ryan, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. Really rough start for Indy to begin the year. 0-2 now, or 0-1-1, I should say,
Yeah.
after a tie to the Texans in week 1.
It feels a lot worse than 0-1-1 in
It
Colts
does.
land. And the only thing that's a silver lining for them is they have their Titans playing the Bills tonight. So you'd hope that if you're a Colts fan, the Bills just blow them out and do embarrassing things to them in Buffalo. And then your division is what? 0-1-1, 0-1-1, 1-1, and 0-2. I mean, that would be your biggest silver lining. But I will just say defensively, I mean, I guess we should have predicted it more, and shame on us. I mean, Matt Eberflus is now the head coach of the Bears. Their defensive coordinator of the past 4 years that helped make that defense special is gone. And he took with them a lot of staff. The Bears defensive coordinator, Alan Williams, was the safeties and quarterbacks coach, and they are getting torched defensively. I think it was, we put a lot of faith in Reich. We put a lot of faith in Matty Ice having a kind of resurgent year. And Chris Ballard, I think, needs to take some criticism for not maybe being more aggressive in the young quarterback market / getting, a legit veteran in that's not just at the end of the career guy. I mean, it's been 4 years since Andrew Luck retired. Like, it's been 4 years ago today, Andrew Luck this was the whole, hey, shocker, I'm retiring, I'm done, I'm out. Like, it's just been, you get a year or two, but now it's just, I mean, it's bad. And you don't blame.
You can't have that excuse anymore, right?
You don't blame Phillip Rivers for just doing 1 year and done. And you go out and get Matt Ryan, who he looks so old, so bad, so quick. And I get it. They're missing Michael Pittman, but I think if I'm a Colts fan, I'm pissed. I'm pissed this morning. Yep. I'm feeling like my head coach and my GM have just let this window just completely, not even close, just like fall off the house. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. You had 2 very winnable games to start your season in bleeping division, and you've blown it. And for the Jags, on the other hand, this feels a lot like the Lions. Like, kudos to them. You look at your schedule, and if you're a Jags fan saying, hey, we could find a way to start 1-1, you feel great about that. Especially Lawrence looked really good at times in this game. Didn't make the big mistakes. Offensively, it seems like they're just letting things come together. Christian Kirk, his a relationship with him took a huge step forward in week 2. And on the road in division, getting a win, love it. Like, it's got to feel great. Got to feel great. And your defense played really well. And your defense is the thing that you thought like was gonna take the more time to come together. But it really did show up in week 2.
Yeah, I mean, this was Trevor Lawrence's like coming out party, I'd say, in a lot of ways. 25 of 30, super efficient. The 2 touchdowns, no picks. And no sacks as well. So like, this is the type of performance we're hoping to see more out of against what maybe is a much worse defense, but still I would say middle of the road. Certainly not back half of the league defense, at least at this point, given the guys they have on there. So kudos Doug Peterson and company. It's a big win and a good springboard for them to kind of build off of.
Definitely
moving forward. Dolphins Ravens, probably the most spectacular game of the Sunday slate. Dolphins find themselves down 3 scores to the Ravens going into the 4th quarter, and Tua Tagovailoa with 6 second half touchdown passes, 6 touchdown
4 in
passes
the second half,
or 4 in the second half, excuse me, 6 total, goes over 460 yards, just torches them late, and Miami comes away with a 42-38 victory over a good Ravens defense. And despite Lamar playing really well in this game, he had over 100 yards rushing as well with that big touchdown run. The Dolphins have arrived. Mike McDaniel might be for real. And perhaps a lot of us wrote off Tua a little bit too soon. It seems like they really are able to get a lot of these big plays that we thought maybe was going to take more time to develop. They've been airing it out. They've been going deep, and they had 2 really big touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill in this one from Tua. So
Mitchell Trubisky threw 6
working.
touchdown passes his first year with Matt Nagy
Yeah,
in September. It happens. I will say this.
Who was that against though? Because the Ravens have a good defense.
Yeah, it was against the Bucs.
Yeah,
but right. I will just say this. I'll just say this. I think Mike McDaniels has some real potential to be a special coach. I think he does. I think, again, he kind of gets it. I think the big 300-pound guys in the locker room look at this tiny little nerdy guy, and it's like, this dude's legit. Like, I think he's got a sensibility about him, a way to lead modern, NFL. Like, Mike McDaniels wouldn't have worked in 90s NFL. They would have laughed him off the field. They were like, you didn't play. I think that's different now. I think it is different. And he relates to guys with the shoes, with the shades, the fashion. He speaks their language.
Fits Miami.
Yeah, he just does. And I think in this nerdy, endearing way. I will say this. This is an embarrassment on John Harbaugh. It is an embarrassment on that Ravens defense. The Ravens defense lost this game. They coughed it up. But the Dolphins, credit to them. This is exactly why they got Tyreek Hill, and they thought it was worth getting Tyreek Hill. Because without Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins don't win this game. And Tua needs playmakers like Tyreek Hill. We see it with the Niners and Jimmy G. The Jimmy G Niners made the Super Bowl and made an NFC Championship game because they took an accurate quarterback who's undersized and not very mobile, but a good leader and buys into the system. Tua is Jimmy G right now, and they surrounded him with a ton of talent, like a ton of legit game breaker talent. And the Dolphins said, we got to do that. Waddle and Tyreek Hill may be the best 1-2 punch in the league right now. It is crazy how much talent and Gesicki is very, very talented as well. Offensive line improved. So Miami Dolphins are legit. Now, are they legit as far as they're going to win in December, in January, in February? No. In my opinion, no. But September football, regular season, a bunch of playmakers, this Dolphins team can win a lot of games, and I predicted them to do that as well. So not shocking for the Ravens, embarrassing, pathetic, got to be better, and I think they will be. And if you're Lamar, you got to look around and being like, what else do you want me to do? I 79-yard run. I put you guys up 21 points in the fourth. It's BS. I'd be pissed if I'm Lamar.
Yeah, 3 straight touchdowns to start the fourth quarter for the Miami Dolphins, and then cap it off with the final one to Jalen Waddle that ended up being the winner there for them in the waning minute of the game. So huge win for Miami as they are now 2-0. Ravens are 1-1. And I guess for good news for the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Steelers is that everyone in the division lost this past week. So, the AFC North is 1-1 with the Steelers somehow amazingly atop that division as we speak right now. The Rams eke out a win against the Falcons. I think there's a little bit trouble brewing in paradise in LA. Honestly, I'm not going to say we're panicking right now, but I'm just saying there should be some cause for concern. They don't seem to be
they're not in right
rhythm. They're not right.
None of their starters played in the preseason. They added new pieces. I think we give and the problem is there's a lot of veterans on this team that were up big and they checked out. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to the Ravens. Their defense completely checked out, and offensively they thought, all right, let's just run the ball, a couple first downs, we can get out of here. And it's not as easy. These are in the NFL. It's not that easy to win games in that way. You have got to step on the throat of your opponent, and you've got to finish these games. The Ravens learned it the hard way. The Browns learned it the hard way. And the credit to the Falcons, they almost did it to the Rams. They almost did it. They're just not talented enough. And the Rams are just enough talented to hold on to that game. I agree. It was concerning, but I do still think it's September. This team has got a bunch of talent. They will figure it out. They've played this poorly through 2 games. And they're 1-1 with a loss to who we all think at this point in time has got to be a Super Bowl favorite in the Bills. So I don't want to panic with the Rams. For the Falcons, same thing I said last week. you got to feel good. You're like, my team is scrappy. Look at my team. It's scrappy. They're fighting. They're making games interesting. Oh, we lost. Oh, dang. Oh, dang. Oh, okay, CJ Stroud, #1 overall pick. You look good in a Falcons uniform.
CJ Stroud to Drake London has a good ring to it. Drake
Yeah, it
London,
does.
they've got a stud rookie right there in
And they got
London. 8 catches for him.
with the tight end from Florida, Pitts.
Yeah,
I mean,
Kyle Pitts, absolutely. They got some mismatches.
They could be feisty real quickly if they're able to figure it out with the young quarterback.
Hey, Tom Brady leaving the division next year. Who knows what's going on in Carolina? This could be a division up for the grabs very easily next year for Atlanta, especially if they can get a rookie quarterback that's ready to win right away and, is a little bit more polished. 49ers and Seahawks, really tough one here. Trey Lance lost for the season due to a broken ankle. Just, brutal on a very just typical run, off tackle.
Guy
rolled up, and unfortunate Jimmy G comes in though, and the 49ers pretty much run the table, take care of business. 27-7 victory over the Seattle. We expected the 49ers to win, but it's now Jimmy G's show, and I don't know how much better, but I think the 49ers are maybe in a better place right now, at least in the next month. I don't know how good Trey Lance was going to get to be, but he was still going through, growing pains. Jimmy G doesn't have to worry about that. The 49ers probably feel good about the position they're in right now, especially what's going on in the division. That similar to the AFC West, maybe they're not as much of a juggernaut as we thought. The 49ers can still compete in this division, and, they pulled out. You got to win the games that you're supposed to win, and they did it.
The football gods looked at Shanahan and they looked at Lynch and they said, we are righting your wrong. Like, you overextended for this kid. You spent way too much on him to go get him. And that's not Lance's fault. And so they're forcing him into action because that's what we say. And you have to go and you have to get game reps. And you have to get snaps. And that's all true. It's very true. And Trey Lance's ceiling is still extraordinarily high. And it sucks for Trey Lance that he's not going to get more reps and to see where his potential could be after a full season of playing football. But the football gods also said this team is built to win a Super Bowl now, and this is the quarterback that it's built around to win them a Super Bowl now. I predicted, the Niners to have a up and down season to miss the playoffs, and the Niners are going to make the playoffs. I mean, I will say it now. I think the Niners, I don't remember a time in my life when a backup quarterback comes in and your quarterback goes down for the whole season, and I feel better about your team's chances now to make the playoffs. I don't remember. It's crazy. And for the Seahawks, this is the Seahawks that we now, all right, settle in. It's going to be a long season. You won your Super Bowl, and now you're going to be battling with Atlanta and Carolina to have Roger Goodell say, with the #1 overall pick, your team selects.
Yeah. Yep. Very true. And look, it's gonna.
Imagine if the Cowboys had traded for Jimmy G and this happened.
I know, man. The insurance policy is now, and what they whittled it down to. They only have to pay him $12 million this year.
And he can make an extra like $5 million in incentives if he every game he plays 25% of the snaps, he gets like $250,000. And every time they win the game, he plays 50% of the snap, 25% of the snaps. He gets an extra $100,000. So Jimmy G,
so he's going to get nearly $500,000 for every win.
Every win this year, he'll get $350,000.
Yeah, not too shabby there for Jimmy G. Absolutely, it's good for the team, good for Jimmy G as well. And then he'll ride into the off season with the highest bidder ready and waiting, and he can kind of make his decision from there. So it's kind of a win-win situation there, especially if they go into a deep playoff run or the Super Bowl. The Cowboys at home against the Bengals, and another kind of shocker. Expected the Bengals maybe to come with their pants on fire in this one, ready to right the wrongs from last week. And Cowboys were able to get after Joe Burrow. This offensive line really looking like it's going to need quite a bit of time to gel properly.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow was on his butt a lot for this game, a lot of this game. And Dallas kind of just rallied around Cooper Rush, and they were able to make the necessary plays. It was kind of a dud of a second half
Yeah.
for them. But they were able to build that early lead and just kind of sustain themselves through to a 2017 win.
The Cowboys will now be 1-3 by the time Dak comes back, and that's okay. They got their one. Like, that's all they needed Cooper Rush to do. And it's crazy that they did it against a Bengals team that you thought was going to come out hair on fire. The problem is this offensive line is really struggling right now. I like some of the pieces. It's just not a unit right now. And I saw a stat. Burrow has been sacked 13 times. The rest of the AFC North quarterbacks have only been sacked 8. So it is insane what he's dealing with right now. And part of it's got to be on him and Zach Taylor. Mike McCarthy might have had the hottest seat of anyone in the NFL going into week 2. And he was able to somehow unplug his seat and plug in Zach Taylor's. They need to come up with a game plan immediately that helps Joe Burrow stay upright and helps this offensive line, because they can't just keep rolling it out here doing the same thing. They're in some real trouble. Best thing to happen for the Bengals is it's early, and the rest of the division is not. No one is already 2-0 running away with it. So they have some time. They have got to figure it out. They've got to figure it out quickly, though, because their schedule gets tough. These were supposed to be 2 easy dubs for them. In my book, I had them winning 14 games. That's not happening now. Can they still win their division? Absolutely. Can they still make the playoffs as a wild card? Absolutely. But you're 0-2. You've basically just squandered the fact that you're for the first round bye. I mean, it's dead. So unless they're rooting for the Titans and hopefully that the AFC West figures it out. I mean, it's still a long season in the AFC, but being 0-2 right now is just killer for the Bengals.
Tough situation. They do have plenty of time to turn this around. Just one game out of the division lead as we speak, just 2 games into the season. The Broncos at home against the Texans managed to get a touchdown with Russell Wilson. This offense still seems to be figuring things out with Nathaniel Hackett, new quarterback, and Russell Wilson, and plenty of newness around. The Texans are better than I think we maybe think.
That's a
globally.
Part of this, yes.
And so that's something to take into consideration. I don't think the Denver defense is nearly as good without Vic Fangio there helping kind of run the show. Nonetheless, like to see more out of Russell Wilson to start these first 2 games. I expect we'll see plenty more from him and this offense to start gelling and get more in sync. But it hasn't been pretty. But they sit 1-1. They got to win, and hopefully they can kind of build on this next week and get some more, especially in the red zone. I think Russ struggled at times, and so we'll kind of look to see if they can build on this right now. But Broncos getting themselves a win, and they needed that after last week.
They absolutely did, because their schedule gets brutal and
very rough.
They were supposed to be 2-0 when we were all circling our schedules doing this 3 weeks ago. They were supposed to be 2-0 to give themselves some cushion, and their cushion is now razor thin after that loss. But I think a lot of people are being way too SOS, trouble, emergency, help on in Denver. Brand new head coach, a ton of new pieces, new quarterback. I think this thing needs a lot of time to bake. The problem is the expectations were sky high. Sky high. They were mile high, you could almost say, if I do say so myself.
I see what you did there.
And I do think part of this is, so I'm not ready to write off Denver. Now, I had Denver missing the playoffs, if you remember. So I have them right on track for about what's going to happen. But I don't want to panic and say Nathaniel Hackett's a bum. But I will say, I do think part of this is the Houston is better than we thought. And a lot of that, in my opinion, goes to Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith has done something that's a little Dan Campbell-esque. He gets guys to buy in. He's always been a player's coach. He wants to play a certain brand of football that is contrary to the modern NFL, and that can bite you in the ass when your modern NFL offense struggles. Because when you do these 3 and outs and you give it back to a team that's going to run the ball, control the clock, and dink and dunk, all of a sudden you say to yourself, why don't we have that many possessions? And why don't we have that many points? Well, you're doing quick pass, 3 and out. The other team gets a couple first downs, kicks a field goal. You get the ball back. They play tight defense. You go 3 and out. They go ding dunk, run, get a touchdown. All of a sudden, it's halftime. You're down 10-0. You're like, what the hell's going on here? So there are some people zigging while everyone is zagging. And those people who are, the Lovie Smiths and the Dan Campbells and playing this hard-nosed defense, run the ball, older
They're
football
creeping
style.
up on people.
It's building a culture. I said before the season, what did I say? I said on this show, I said on my show, the most important thing for the Houston Texans to do this year is to try to build any sort of culture, because they have been so rudderless the last 2 years with everything going on with Watson. They needed this help of reset, and I think positive vibes in Houston right now. And if you're in Denver, I wouldn't panic, but also I'm the guy who predicted you to miss the playoffs to be about 500, so I felt this way. So that's maybe why I'm not panicking.
It is interesting when you have the fans literally shouting the play clock to you in your home stadium.
Hackett has struggled.
Yeah, he certainly has. All right, the Cardinals at the Raiders, a wild game in this one as well. This one goes down to the wire. The Cardinals trailing at the end of the fourth quarter. Kyler Murray, last chance, 4th and goal, ends up running about 80 yards in a 20-yard span. 82 yards sideways, and it ends up getting in the end zone. They go for the 2-point conversion to tie it. He throws a strike in the back of the end zone, a beautiful thrown ball in a really tight window, ends up sending them to overtime. Derek Carr and company, start to drive. Hunter Renfrow gets the ball stripped by Isaiah Simmons, and it's a fumble recovery touchdown for the Cardinals walk-off win, 29-23. I want to say the Raiders blew it because they did in a lot of ways, but the Cardinals also took this game as well. Yeah. And Kyler Murray deserves a ton of credit for his ability, his leadership at the end. This is why you're in a situation where you got to pay a guy like him, right? And that's why they did what they did, because he is that special, and he showed that he could put the team on his back when they needed him the most.
Raiders are 0-2. They're in trouble because their schedule is tough and their division is so tough. I do think there's positive for the Raiders, though. You can see clearly the bad drafts from Mayock and Gruden have just hurt this team. They're missing 2 or 3 top end talent pieces, 1 or 2 on offense, 1 or 2 on defense. And they just, and when you just don't have those talents, you can play a perfect game and it can slip away. And I also think there's positives to think from. Everyone's like, oh, where was Davante Adams? I think it's kind of a good thing. I watched those drives of the Raiders early on when they took a big lead, and they did it without just force feeding Davante Adams. That's a good thing for this Raiders offense. You know what I mean? On the negative end, and for the Cardinals, I agree with you. I mean, they put themselves in a terrible spot getting down big. But Kyler Murray, I deserve some credit. He's paid very well now, and so you're allowed to be very critical of a guy. And he showed up when his team needed the most, and he won them the game. He He stole it away from the Raiders, just like Tua and their game planning stole it away from the Ravens that pathetically gave it up, and the Browns as well. So kudos to them, and a big win for the Cardinals to stay alive. If they would have been 0-2, I think they would have been in more trouble than the Raiders being 0-2.
Yeah, I still feel good about my NFC West prediction there with the Raiders, 49ers, and Rams all making the playoffs in this one. I did have the Raiders missing it in the AFC West, and I feel comfortable with that so far as well. But 2 talented teams, just kind of in different situations at this point in time. Let's go to Sunday Night Football, man. Death, taxes, and Aaron Rodgers putting on a show against the Chicago Bears.
Literally
Those are
death
the guarantees
to me
in life, and unfortunately for you and your Chicago Bears, that was the case once again. Looked great on the first drive of the game for the Bears. Methodically down the field, touchdown. But Green Bay ran the ball down their throats the rest of the way, and Aaron Rodgers with a couple touchdown strikes to put it away 27-10. Your thoughts on your 1-1 Chicago Bears? Listen,
again, I feel similar to you. We're 1-1, and a lot of people predicted to be a disastrous 0-2 start. So I don't want my expectations are being met as of right now. I think the thing that's frustrating is the Bears, they don't organizationally, doesn't matter who's coaching, I don't think they understand playing at Lambeau Field. Like there were
Yeah.
so many times you cannot run the ball out and get stopped and tackled on a kickoff at the 15-yard line. The Packers effing hate your guts. We hate their guts. So when you're backed up at your own 15 and you're already down 10-7, they're going to be loud as bleeping hell. And they offensively were inept. They lost the field position battle, and they're not talented enough to lose the field position battle against a really good Packers defense. The reason why Aaron Rodgers has no weapons is a Packers draft defense. It's a good Packers defense. And you cannot put yourself in a bad field position game in Green Bay. So I think they mismanaged that very poorly. They're missing their rookie wide receiver, Jones Jr. He's a speed guy. He's a difference guy that I think just is going to help make their offense click a bit. They were being too protective of Fields while also not running it enough. I don't know how, but that's just the facts. And I'll just say this. Mooney, 5 targets, 2 catches, 4 yards. Cole Kmet, 2 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. Mooney, we know, is good. Cole Kmet has been a massive disappointment. He's another Ryan Pace player that he's not an elite starting tight end.
You don't think he could be a stud in this league? I think
at this point you would have seen Kittle
I blame the coaching staff for that. He's like a preseason darling. Like he seemed to have a connection with Justin Fields. Like,
but again, that's all because you have to scheme everything for him. I mean, there's never plays where it's like, dude, he just physically was better than everyone else on that. Well, you see from Darren Waller, you see that from Kittle, you see that from Kelsey. It's not always just scheming them to get wide open. And listen, the Bears only threw the ball 11 times, so it's not fair maybe for me to judge Mooney and Kmet. But to me right now, those two guys need to be a bigger part of your game plan, and your game plan needs to include long drives. Part of the reason is you just can't sustain drives, but you can't sustain drives when you back yourself up. So I think overall, after that first drive, they just lost their sense of way offensively, and they put themselves in bad field position, and you can't do that in Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers, against this great defense and a Packers team that you knew they would take this opportunity to get right. You knew they'd run it down your throats. Roquan Smith did not play great. So there are a lot of things to be concerned about. But overall, it could have been way worse. There were times that Bears defense made one big stop to prevent the bleeding. They kept themselves alive long enough. I mean, it wasn't one of those 44-7s that we've seen against previous regimes. So I think overall, it's crazy to say, but it could have been worse. And 1-1, I'll take it. There are some games that you should see the offense be able to open up coming up soon, and I'm looking forward to that. The Bears played 2 great defenses to start the season, so I want to be too critical offensively, but I need to see Justin Fields actually having time to scan, to throw, to find guys, to push the ball downfield, and we haven't seen that through 2 games.
Yeah, I think there's no excuse. They need to find a way to get the ball in Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet's hands. I don't care what it is. I mean, do a tight end screen, do a wide receiver drag, something to get the ball in their hands. These are your playmakers. Yeah. These are the dudes that
Cole Kmet's a good blocker though, and they use him a lot, and they need that. And that's again a fault that it's not Ryan Poles' fault that this is the card you dealt with, and they showed that graphic of how much salary was tied up to guys that aren't there. It's killer, man. I mean, it's just
it's a brutal slate for them to work with there. I will say, like, real quick to tie a bow on this, the 2 glaring things for me in this one was their inability to adjust. I don't think they adjusted their game plan properly. They did the first one, and then they just kept pounding it. The number of, like, 2nd and 10 runs that they called, and stretch runs at that went for 1 or 2 yards. You're putting yourself in 3rd and long way too often. All right. Now
deep in your own territory.
It worked for them in the 4th quarter on the one really good drive where 2nd and long, they both got first down conversions from Herbert.
Well, they were better run calls. They were
tosses,
better run
calls.
Tosses. They got movement. It was better run calls.
Yeah.
It looked like the Niners runs. It looked like the Niners runs. You know what I mean? And Luke Getsy's in that tree.
Yes. And finally, the tackling was bad. I mean, on defense, they way too many broken tackles by the running backs. That's the way Green Bay, look, they may be better off than they were last year because they're forcing themselves to actually find ways to win with two stud running backs.
Yep.
Like if they this is a formula that they can win most games with if they stick to this and just go over the top when they have the chance. So Green Bay, I think looked much better and in their element, a kind of a rebound game, if you will. The Bears, they just kind of are who we thought they were. I do think that they're going to get better as the season goes along with that chemistry. But you got to get Justin Fields more passing reps. 11 attempts, just not going to cut it for sure. So that does it really for our week 2 recap. Got a couple Monday night games coming up here as well. So be interesting to see some premier matchups. The Bills taking on the Titans, Eagles, Vikings. I have the Bills over the Titans. I imagine you do as well. And
I do, but I have
the Eagles winning this one.
I have the Titans covering the 10. People are all like, because I just think Vrabel, this team Monday night in Buffalo, I think the Titans could get ahead early and maybe even be leading at half, but Allen pulls away and Titans get a late score then to maybe help cover the 10. I think it's a closer game. I don't think it's a blowout. And then I do like the Eagles. I'm hoping for the Eagles. Again, for me in my situation, it would be great if you could have 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. So getting an Eagles win and getting the Vikings to 1-1 would be lovely.
I think the Vikings are a good team. You know that. I've got them 12-5 on the year, but I think this is one of their 5 losses here on the road in a hostile environment against Philly. So we'll see how this pans out, but should be interesting for sure. We got the Steelers and the Browns coming up on Thursday night to kick off week 3 before another full slate on Sunday. So we'll stay tuned for that and take care of those Microsoft Surfaces. Everybody.
Yes.